Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative Headline News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar, starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago. Senator Foster Cummings, Saint Cummings, recently warned that the leaked Hadid-Sabga audio recording raises serious questions about citizens' privacy rights, saying every person should be concerned if private conversations can no longer remain private. He's right about that, but PNM in general are being hypocrites. PNM officials are being hypocrites because we all know that people were most likely spied upon under the mighty morphing Ghanaian coal-pot bicycle. No ham, no macaroni pie. Whole strain, tighten your belts, PNM administration, especially for the past 9.5 years. But as I keep telling people, UNC making bad for themselves, because when PNM wins again in 2030, they're going to continue with this unless finally Privy Council strikes down this and says you cannot continue to declare an SOE to fight crime. I just hope and pray it happens soon. Nevertheless, and also the spying thing. He said it appears that even senior citizens are being subjected to the government's heavy-handed abuse of executive power. Now, once again, as I said, he's correct, though. I'm just looking at the hypocrisy, though. He said it was alarming that the Interception of Communications Act could be abused in this way. Cummings said the government owes the country an apology, and that if any public official or government minister is found to have exceeded their lawful authority or abused executive power, they should be held accountable and appropriate action should be taken. I said it in my other news report just now. Anyone found guilty of this, of any wrongdoing, should face time in prison. They like to put people in jail, taste jail. Political strategist and consultant P.S. Robinson, who analyzed the audio, said in a Facebook post that it did not establish an assassination plot. I said it on my other news report here, and I will say it again. People, wishful thinking, making a statement of what you wish could happen, does not show intent to actually carry out the act. Hypocrites in the UNC were wishing the same thing could happen. As a matter of fact, they were wishing that 1990 could reoccur. And they were wishing also that other people could end up doing certain things to harm government officials under PNM. They made comments online, and they were having personal discussions with people all throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And now they're pretending as though they never did. When it becomes a crime is when you put action to it. Whatever it is, they had said in the conversation, well, we're going to call so and so and so in order to be able to get them to carry out this act. Then that could have shown intent. You understand? And then that still wasn't sufficient. They would have needed more evidence to prove that there was actually contact was made, that actual contact was made with these criminals to carry out the crime. The audio records an elderly woman venting privately to her niece about what she believed was the persecution of her community. Exactly. It records assertions of innocence. They were saying that we are innocent, law-abiding people who are being targeted wrongfully by this government. So all this conspiracy theory about the 1% controlling gangs, these particular 1%ers definitely not doing it, because they were personal. This was a personal conversation, and they could have said it if they wanted to, because they didn't think they were being spied on. You understand what I'm showing you? So it records assertions of innocence, concern for livelihoods, discussions of the employment and treatment of black citizens, racial and political hostility, and reckless predictions of violence. Now, that's the thing about it. These are reckless predictions of violence. But it's not about reckless. You're speaking facts, just like how Kamala spoke facts. That if the 1%, well, Kamala didn't say that. I'm saying about what Sabga said. The 1% businesses collapse, people, tens of thousands will lose their jobs, and of course there will be chaos. We don't know exactly what will happen, but there will be chaos, and a lot of crime would increase anyhow you take it. Right? But when Kamala said that if PNM wins, blood will flow the streets, it's because she was saying that crime would increase. She wasn't trying to incite any violence. She was speaking the facts. The government, but now UNC is basically the same as PNM, so crime is still happening. The government converted the private conversation into a national security allegation and detained 3 citizens under extraordinary powers. They abused the authority, people. Dominic Hadid is absent in the conversation. Genevieve Hadid repeatedly speaks of innocence. Exactly. Star Sabga identifies no agreement or action directed towards assassinating the Prime Minister. Robinson added. She never said she was going to plot anything. You understand what I'm showing you? No agreement, no carrying out of any action. You understand? She never agreed to carry out any action. She said she wished certain things would happen, but she never said that she was going to actually carry out anything or do anything. Robinson said this racial slur used towards Kamala should not have been used. Of course not. Of course, but it happens. It happens, and the hypocrites, including probably even Robinson. Don't tell me Robinson Pearson never said anything racist about anyone. Maybe he did. Maybe he's a saint. I don't know. I know the vast majority of people here in Trinidad and Tobago, East Indians use that same word about their own people when they're vexed with their own people. Africans do it also with their own people. And definitely towards the both to the opposing races, they say it about each other all the time, using the respective words. He said those words justified investigation to determine whether any material threat existed. I don't really understand that part of his statement. What threat? What threat did they make about just by saying using those prejudiced words? We are really doing there, boy Robinson. But anyhow, they reveal anger and an irresponsible prediction that violence could occur. No, they were not trying to incite anything. It was a personal conversation. They didn't say it online anyhow, Pearson. But they identified no person who agreed to commit violence. But he said about investigation, he never said to detain them. Said everything that was said there, then they deserve being detained, but investigating. But no, those statements, people, was just about what could happen. So he and all missing the points to an extent. He and all missing the point to a great extent. But they identified no person who agreed to commit violence, no intended attacker, no weapon, no instructions, and no act directed towards carrying out a killing. And that is what is most important. He said the public deserved answers. Yeah, but as I said before, Pearson, you went a little, you stray off there. You stray off there. Because all they said was not anything reckless. All they said is that if their businesses collapse, that there will be chaos. It was just factual. They never said they will cause chaos. Pearson, go on and listen to it over again. They never said they will incite any violence or try to encourage people to cause any violence to take place. They were basically speaking the facts that tens of thousands of people will lose their jobs, and therefore there will be chaos when such a large portion of the population lose jobs, people. It probably would have mass protests, and a lot of these protests sometimes could end up resulting in violence. They never said it should become violent. I am not saying it should become violent. I always promote peaceful protests. You understand? But they were just saying that these things could happen. They were not trying to encourage anything to happen either, people. My response, all of a sudden, citizens are being arrested and imprisoned for making statements during private conversations. We could all understand if they said it publicly, online, and something like that, they could have been accused of trying to incite violence. So I said, all of a sudden, citizens are being arrested and imprisoned for making statements during private conversations, even though there's no evidence that any attempt was made to actually plot an assassination attempt against government members. Both Afros and Indos make racist comments as well, so this level of hypocrisy must stop. These two women were feeling targeted by the government, even though they made it clear in their conversation that they were not involved in any type of criminal activity. They're not controlling any gang. Wishes, people, are not a crime. Wishes are not a crime. Wishing that something can happen is not a crime. It's if you attempt to get this wish to come true, then it becomes a crime. UNC supporters made similar wishes about Rowley and his crew for 9.5 years, but they never attempted to commit that serious crime. You understand what I'm showing here? They never actually tried to carry it out, people. Likewise, the Hadids and Star Sabga are innocent citizens who were simply expressing themselves during a private conversation. Who gave the state the right to spy on these individuals? That is what I want to know. Who else are they spying on? That is what we need to know as well. Is that what we want? Is that what we want? A government that is spying on the people of Trinidad and Tobago, using the SOE in order to have the authority to abuse their privileges by spying on citizens when there's no valid reason, justifiable reason for doing so? My goodness, boy. Kamala, what have you done to the United National Congress?
Weather report for Trinidad and Tobago on Tuesday, July 28, 2026. On Tuesday, July 28, 2026, Trinidad and Tobago will experience cloudy intervals with a maximum temperature of 29 degrees Celsius and a minimum of 24 degrees Celsius alongside a high probability of daytime thunderstorms. The morning will start with partly sunny skies, but conditions will deteriorate by late morning into the afternoon. The afternoon brings a 40% to 45% chance of scattered thunderstorms, which can produce gusty winds and localized street flooding. The humidity will average around 80%, making it feel like 33 degrees Celsius during peak afternoon heat. Conditions are expected to clear up by the evening, turning into a mostly fair night with light scattered showers towards midnight. Marine conditions feature slight to moderate seas in open waters. Waves will range from 1.0 to 1.5 meters in open waters and remain smooth below 1.0 meter in sheltered areas.
Regional news now. Minister of Tourism Dr. Kishore Shallow says St. Vincent and the Grenadines is experiencing renewed investor interest. That is really good. It will generate more revenue, foreign revenue. A development he believes will further strengthen the country's tourism industry and overall economic growth. Exactly. And that will provide jobs as well. As the economy grows, so you will end up having more jobs available. Dr. Shallow said investor confidence is being supported by a growing calendar of major events, including the upcoming Caribbean Premier League matches, which will be hosted in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the first time. I'm really happy for them. According to the minister, accommodation providers have already reported strong bookings, highlighting the anticipated economic benefits of sports tourism. Definitely so. I'm telling you all, don't just focus on the carnival. Focus on these other things. And these other, you have the fishing one. I think it have the culinary one as well, right? These events, and I think it goes for about a week. It's really good. Dr. Shallow also pointed to the successful engagement with regional and international cruise operators during a recent industry meeting held in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He said cruise partners have welcomed the arrival of Global Ports Holding as the new operator of the country's cruise port, expressing optimism that investment will enhance the visitor experience and support long-term growth in the cruise sector.
After this launch today, we have the CPL in a matter of days. To be precise, August 7th, 8th, and 9th. I'll just tell you that we have a real surprise in store for CPL coming up. You don't want to miss it. I won't tell you just what that surprise is yet, but we have an amazing surprise coming up. But we are indeed experiencing a renewed investor confidence, increased interest in regional and international markets, and growing occupancy that we are seeing right across, especially in our accommodation sector. Vincimas, all the hotels rooms were gone, all. And so far, for CPL, which is, again, in 2 weeks' time, hotel rooms are already booked out. We are going to try our utmost to optimize every individual we have on staff, every dollar that the Prime Minister and his cabinet give to us to invest. And we are going to stretch our lot and ensure that we are a successful destination to the rest of the world. At the same time, while we celebrate partnerships in the air, I think something very exciting to look forward to is Acton with the public-private partnership with Global Ports Holding, and there's a deliberate attempt from us to increase calls and passenger spend in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Recently, and I may mention of an inclusive approach, on Friday last week we met with the entire cruise sector, at least representation, and they were so excited, elated really at the prospect of GPH. And we'll continue speaking to our key stakeholders because we do believe that the way we are going to achieve our fullest potential is by collaborating and having everyone on board. And that is the spirit in which we are moving forward.
International news now. President Donald Trump called on the Senate to swiftly pass legislation making daylight saving time permanent. I never really understood. I mean, yeah, people say, oh, because it gets dark very very late, and it gets bright very early, and that's why I shifted. Just get up and just go to work even though it's still dark. Anyhow, so President Donald Trump called on the Senate to swiftly pass legislation making daylight saving time permanent, urging lawmakers to eliminate the country's twice-yearly seasonal clock changes. Speaking at a campaign rally, Trump expressed strong support for the Sunshine Protection Act following his recent bipartisan 308 to 117 passage in the U.S. House of Representatives. I hope they pass it. I find it just doesn't make sense. He told the crowd that the current system of switching clocks forward in spring and back in the fall is frustrating and unnecessary routine, exactly. Confusing as well, emphasizing his desire to see the reform bill cross the finish line to become law. I support this. The presidential push injects significant momentum into a long-debated issue that now faces an uncertain path forward in the Senate. Yeah, but why the Republicans and them wouldn't support this? Where some lawmakers have raised concerns about late winter sunrises. Miss me with that, no man. It is a good idea.
Let's get rid of daylight saving time stuff, okay? We have a bill in. Hopefully the Senate's going to approve that one. The House approved it, and we're going to get rid of that.
Bible quote of the day. Psalm 19:5-8. God's glory in creation and in his word. It is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. It rises at one end of the heavens and makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived of its warmth. The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's headline news. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.